In my practice, the types of mistakes I see business owners make with their contracting fall into generally three categories, and that's the formation stage, the review or drafting stage, and then the performance and enforcement stage. What do I mean by that? Well, in the formation stage, we're talking about how is the agreement formed. And I think a lot of business owners make the mistake of assuming when they're contracting with somebody else who maybe has boilerplate terms and conditions that they always follow, that the terms of that agreement are not negotiable. In my experience, even I receive boilerplate contracts all the time from huge vendors across the country, and in almost every case, it's possible to negotiate some terms to be representative of what you're doing in the deal. So don't assume that your terms are not negotiable. Assume that terms are negotiable and seek out terms that are favorable to you and your business. That's the first mistake owners fail to do. The second thing that business owners make mistakes about is not reviewing their contracts completely and efficiently. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of contract reviews, when contracts are being formed, take the mindset of we were planning for the marriage and not expecting the divorce. And where that can lead to problems is if you assume everything in a contractual relationship will go great and that you will never have problems, you are likely to have a document that evidences your agreement that is incomplete. You need to, when you're reviewing contracts, assume that you are going to have a dispute with the other side. And with that assumption in mind, you need to review the contract and make sure that it clearly states what both sides are supposed to do in every given circumstance. Most contractual disputes arise in situations where the parties don't have a debate that they have an agreement, but they have a disagreement about what does the document mean, or did they fully write up their agreement, or did they forget something that they meant to add to the agreement that's not there, or did they forget to modify a term of the agreement even though they agreed to modify the term, they didn't get it in the writing. So all of those things can be problematic for business owners. And so when you're doing a contract review, you want to make sure you're reviewing the entire contract for all of its terms. You want to make sure that those terms are what you agreed to. And if you have any doubts about any of that, you definitely want to make sure a lawyer looks at that. Now, the final thing that people make mistakes on is in the performance of contracts. My clients don't do this. I always advise my clients perform your contracts to the letter, but obviously some business owners will breach contracts. And some business owners, once they have breached, or once a breach has occurred, they tend to default to a fighting posture as opposed to a let's work this out posture. And a lot of times when I receive litigation cases, it's because the parties didn't try to work things out and started accusing each other of wrongdoing. In my experience, one of the best things you can do when you see a contract has been breached is to identify it, talk with the other side about it, and see if you can negotiate to some kind of a win-win outcome first before you retreat to your corners and start fighting. I think a lot of business owners just have the instinctual reaction of let's retreat and start fighting. And when you do that first, before you call a lawyer, oftentimes you cut off options that you might have had up front that would be a better way to resolve your dispute. So I always encourage my business clients to call me before they get in a fight with somebody in the hope that we can avoid having the fight in the first place.